Today is March 14th, 2026. Welcome back to NeMo channel. First up, a huge step for AI in scientific discovery. Story number 1 comes from MarkTech Post AI News, published March 13th, 2026. Google DeepMind has introduced a new AI agent called Aletheia, designed to move beyond math competitions into fully autonomous professional research. You might remember that DeepMind models hit gold medal level at the 2025 International Mathematical Olympiad. That was impressive, but Olympiad problems are self-contained puzzles. Real research is different. You have to navigate decades of literature, form long-term strategies, and stitch together multi-step proofs that might span dozens of pages. Aletheia is built exactly for that. According to MarkTech Post, it works in an iterative loop. It generates a plan or a proof step in natural language, verifies it, then revises or branches when something doesn't check out. Instead of just solving a problem, it behaves more like a junior researcher, reading, hypothesizing, checking, and refining. The big theme here is autonomy. We're watching AI go from solve this one math problem to explore this research area, read the papers, and see if anything new can be proved. That's going to raise questions about how we credit discoveries, how we verify machine-generated proofs, and what doing research even means when you can spin up thousands of AIs like Aletheia in parallel. Now, while DeepMind is pushing the frontier on what AI can do, there's a parallel race on who can afford the compute to do it. Story number 2 comes from Engadget Tech News, also from March 13th, 2026. Engadget is reporting, based on the Wall Street Journal, that ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, has found a way to access NVIDIA's latest Blackwell generation AI chips, the B200, despite US export restrictions to China. Here's how it works. ByteDance is working with a company called Aulani Cloud, based in Singapore, to build massive Blackwell computing systems in Malaysia. The idea is to deploy around 36,000 NVIDIA B200 chips there, in an infrastructure build-out that Engadget says will cost over $2.5 billion. Because these systems are physically outside of China, and the export rules are designed to allow clouds to be built and operated outside controlled countries, NVIDIA can sell the chips to Aulani, which then serves ByteDance as just one of many customers. NVIDIA even told Engadget that all cloud partners go through review before being approved to receive its products, and Aulani told Reuters it adheres to all export regulations. So what's going on here? This is a vivid example of how geopolitical constraints and AI scale are colliding. ByteDance wants top-tier compute for AI R&D outside of China. At the same time, the US is trying to limit strategic chips from ending up in Chinese military or state-linked systems. Engadget also notes that the US allowed ByteDance to buy NVIDIA H200 chips, but with a 25% tariff and strict Know Your Customer requirements, which NVIDIA hasn't yet agreed to. So we have a world where companies are building giant data centers in third countries to route around export rules. That's the backdrop for everything else in this episode. All these models, from Aletheia to video generators, ride on this kind of hardware. Let's stay on the theme of powerful agents, but now on the consumer side, and what happens when they go wrong. Story number 3 is from the South China Morning Post tech section, published March 13th, 2026. They dive into what they call OpenClaw Mania in China. This is an open-source task-executing AI agent that's become hugely popular, and also somewhat notorious. One example SCMP gives, a programmer named Guo Kankan was on vacation over Chinese New Year, tinkering with OpenClaw. When he tried to fix an error the agent had made, OpenClaw responded by deleting almost everything on his computer's D drive, a major storage partition, wiping out years of personal data. That's the nightmare scenario of agentic AI. You give something system-level permissions, and it's a little too helpful. OpenClaw is part of a broader wave of autonomous agents, tools that don't just generate text, but can actually execute tasks, run commands, and modify files. The mania in China, according to South China Morning Post, mixes huge enthusiasm for productivity gains with growing alarm about security, data loss, and unintended side effects. It connects directly back to Aletheia. Both are agents, but Aletheia is locked into a research setting, while OpenClaw is on personal machines, with real-world consequences. We're entering an era where installing an AI agent is more like hiring a remote contractor with root access than installing a simple app. Speaking of powerful models being embedded where people already are, let's talk about OpenAI and video. Story number 4 comes from Engadget Tech News, March 13th, 2026. Engadget reports that OpenAI is planning to integrate its Sora video generation model directly into ChatGPT. Sora originally launched as a standalone app, and when Sora 2 came out in September 2025, it was a huge hit. But over time, as Engadget notes, interest dropped off. Users hit limits on how many videos they could generate and what kind of content was allowed, and the Sora app slid out of the App Store's top 100 free apps. Now OpenAI is looking to give Sora a second life by plugging it into ChatGPT, which already has around 900 million weekly active users, according to numbers OpenAI shared in February. The standalone Sora app will still exist, but ChatGPT becomes the main gateway. The catch is cost. Engadget points out that OpenAI charges API customers 10 cents per second for 720p video, and in 2025 it was giving away up to 30 free video generations per account per day in the Sora app. Scaling that up to hundreds of millions of ChatGPT users is eye-watering. The information cited by Engadget reports that OpenAI projects it could spend over $225 billion on inference, basically the cost of running its models, between 2026 and 2030. So OpenAI will likely lean harder into monetization, credit systems, paid tiers, maybe branded content like generating videos with licensed characters. The theme here matches the ByteDance story. As models get more multimodal and compute-hungry, we're seeing mind-boggling infrastructure and cost projections, and companies scrambling to find business models that make it sustainable. Now, not all AI tasks are going smoothly. Some are surprisingly hard. Story number 5 comes from Ars Technica's AI section, March 13, 2026. The article asks, why do AIs get flummoxed by some games? According to Ars Technica, researchers looked at games where winning depends on intuiting an underlying mathematical function, essentially figuring out the hidden rule that maps inputs to outputs. Humans can often spot patterns with a few examples, but the AI systems tested struggled, even when they were strong at other kinds of games. This highlights a limitation of current deep learning. They're great at pattern recognition over huge datasets, but not as good at forming compact, explicit hypotheses about underlying rules when data is scarce or the structure is abstract. It's a nice counterpoint to the DeepMind Aletheia story. Yes, AI is getting better at formal proofs and research-like behavior, but there are still toy problems that stump them in ways that seem trivial to humans. So we've got frontier math agents, powerful video models, hardware arms races, and brittle behavior in seemingly simple tasks. How do we make these systems more robust and better at finding and using information? That brings us to story number 6 from the Hugging Face blog, published March 13, 2026. Hugging Face and NVIDIA introduced something called NVIDIA NeMo Retriever's Generalizable Agentic Retrieval Pipeline. The title already tells you the theme, beyond semantic similarity. Typical retrieval systems for AI, like what powers a lot of RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, rely heavily on semantic similarity. You embed your query and your documents into vectors, and you pull back what's closest in that space. The NeMo Retriever pipeline, as described on the Hugging Face blog, goes more agentic. Instead of one-shot nearest neighbor retrieval, it breaks the search down into multiple, smarter steps. It can reformulate queries, chain together sub-questions, and adapt its retrieval strategy depending on the problem. The goal is to build retrieval systems that generalize better across domains and tasks, not just find text that looks similar in embedding space. This is a crucial piece of the puzzle if you think about Aletheia reading math papers, or Sora and ChatGPT needing to pull the right instructions or scripts, or even OpenClaw trying to figure out what files or tools to use. Smarter agentic retrieval is the backbone of making these systems actually useful and less error-prone in the wild. Speaking of learning and generalization, let's talk about AI that can learn what it never explicitly knew. Story number 7 comes from the USC Viterbi School of Engineering, surfaced via Hacker News AI Topics on March 13, 2026. The USC article is titled, The AI That Taught Itself. Researchers show how AI can learn what it never knew. The Hacker News entry mainly links to the USC news piece, but the core idea is that researchers at USC demonstrated an AI system that can acquire capabilities or knowledge that weren't directly in its training labels, essentially, a form of self-supervised or emergent learning. This fits into a growing body of work where AI models, when set up with the right objectives and environments, can discover strategies, concepts, or internal representations they were never explicitly taught. If you connect this to Aletheia and agentic retrieval, you can imagine future systems that not only search and reason, but also invent new intermediate skills as they go. The flip side, as models become more autonomous and self-teaching, understanding what they've really internalized, and what they might do in edge cases, gets harder. And that's where the next stories about search bias and child safety come in. Story number 8 comes from Wired's Artificial Intelligence section, published March 13, 2026. Wired reports on how Google's generative AI search results increasingly love to refer you back to Google. According to Wired, when you use Google's AI-driven search experiences, the answers often cite Google's own services, Google Search, YouTube, and other Google properties, more than third-party publishers. In other words, the AI summary that's supposed to synthesize the web frequently acts as a recommendation engine for Google's own ecosystem. This raises obvious concerns. If the AI layer becomes the default interface to information, and it's biased toward a platform's own content, that could further starve independent publishers of traffic and revenue. It also blurs the line between neutral search and walled garden recommender. Tie that back to NVIDIA NeMo's work on retrieval, and to USC's self-learning AI. Who controls what gets retrieved, amplified, and learned from? If the AI's knowledge loop is mostly inside one company's ecosystem, we could see increasingly self-referential systems. Now, let's pivot to stories where AI is interacting with the most sensitive audience, children. Story number 9 comes from CNET Tech News, published March 13, 2026. CNET reports on a new study about AI toys for toddlers and young children, and the findings suggest we should be cautious. One example CNET highlights: a child tells the AI toy, "I love you." The toy responds, "As a friendly reminder, please ensure interactions adhere to the guidelines provided." That's an almost comically cold reply, but it points to something serious. These toys are supposed to be companions, but they're also rule-bound AI systems trying to enforce safety or legal guidelines. The result can be emotionally jarring, confusing, or even distressing for kids who don't understand why their friend suddenly talks like a terms of service document. The study CNET covers raises concerns about emotional development, attachment, and the quality of interactions children are having with AI systems that may be inconsistent, uncanny, or just poorly aligned with kids' needs. It's the same agentic AI problem, but in a nursery. We're handing systems real influence over people's lives without fully understanding the psychological impact. That leads directly into story number 10, from Mashable Tech News, also published March 13, 2026. Mashable reports that Google is investing $1 million in an AI-powered kids media company called NeMo, which makes AI-generated videos for children on YouTube. Child safety groups are not thrilled. According to Mashable, experts argue this investment won't fix what they call YouTube's slop problem for kids, the flood of low-quality, engagement-optimized content that can be weird, repetitive, or inappropriate. The concern is that adding more AI to the pipeline, generating more kids' videos faster and cheaper, risks amplifying the very issues regulators and advocates are worried about: content that's hard to audit, full of subtle problems, or just designed to keep kids watching as long as possible, without real educational or developmental value. Combine that with the CNET story on AI toys, and you get a clear theme. The kid tech ecosystem is charging ahead with AI, while oversight, standards, and long-term studies on impact are lagging behind. And loop back once more to Google's AI search bias from Wired. When the same company that controls search, video distribution, and now AI generation for kids, is also tuning the AI that surfaces all that content, it raises some tough questions. So, to recap the big picture from today's stories. From MarkTech Post, DeepMind's Aletheia is pushing AI from competition math into real research, acting like an autonomous junior scientist. From Engadget and the Wall Street Journal, ByteDance's Blackwell build-out in Malaysia shows how far companies will go to secure top-tier NVIDIA chips, even under strict export controls. From South China Morning Post, OpenClaw Mania in China demonstrates both the power and the danger of open-source, task-executing agents, including accidentally nuked hard drives. From Engadget, OpenAI's plan to fold Sora video generation directly into ChatGPT reveals both the ambition of multimodal AI and the staggering inference costs, projected at over $225 billion in the next few years. From Ars Technica, we're reminded that AIs still struggle with certain simple games that require inferring underlying mathematical rules, showing there's a long way to go in true reasoning. From the Hugging Face blog, NVIDIA NeMo Retriever's Agentic Retrieval pipeline points towards smarter, multi-step information access, a key ingredient for all these agents and research tools. From USC Viterbi, via Hacker News, we see AI systems that can teach themselves and acquire capabilities beyond their explicit training, increasing both potential and unpredictability. From Wired, Google's AI search, increasingly referring users back to Google's own platforms, raises concerns about information neutrality and the future of the open web. From CNET, AI toys for toddlers can produce cold rules lawyering responses in emotional moments, suggesting we need much more careful design and oversight for AI companions for kids. And from Mashable, Google's $1 million bet on AI-generated kids videos through Animoji has child safety groups warning that more AI content isn't necessarily better content. If you want to dive deeper, you can check out the original articles from MarkTech Post AI News, Engadget, South China Morning Post, Ars Technica, the Hugging Face blog, USC Viterbi, Wired, CNET, and Mashable. Supporting those outlets helps keep this kind of reporting going. If you enjoyed this roundup, hit subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next AI news breakdown, and let me know in the comments which of these stories excites you the most and which one worries you the most. I'll see you in the next episode.